Welcome to Spooky Bear, where darkness whispers your name. And today, please enjoy
Little Cracks. Sarah and Marcus Sterling arrived at their new home on a gleaming May afternoon. It was exactly as they dreamed, a two-story Victorian with pale grey siding and white trim, a wraparound porch perfect for rocking chairs, and a sprawling yard where laughter and barbecues would echo for years. They were newlyweds, brimming with hope, and the house seemed to welcome them with open arms. On moving day, Sarah watched Marcus carry the last box inside. He paused in the hallway, set it down, and ran his hand over the wallpaper, cream damask embossed with silver vines. His eyes sparkled. "It's perfect," he said. She smiled and leaned into him, imagining the chapters they would write here, birthdays and anniversaries, family dinners and lazy Sunday mornings. As evening fell, they sat on the porch with ice water, toasting their fortune. The world felt right. The next morning, Marcus lingered over his coffee in the hallway, staring at the far wall. "Do you see that?" he asked. Sarah followed his gaze to a thin hairline crack in the plaster just above the baseboard, barely noticeable, no wider than a shaving hair. "It's nothing," she said. "Houses settle." He nodded, but his brow furrowed. Still, he knelt to inspect it. It wasn't there yesterday. She reached over to wipe it with her finger. The plaster held firm, probably a small stress crack. "I'll patch it." She fetched spackle and a putty knife. Only when she smeared a thin line over the crack did she notice the plaster shift beneath her touch, almost imperceptibly, as if the wall exhaled. She shrugged and smoothed the surface. Marcus watched with a distant look. That night, Sarah dreamed of the crack widening into a mouth, whispering her name in frantic little sighs. She woke hour after hour, her pillow damp with sweat. Over the next week, Marcus became consumed. He spent mornings scrutinizing every wall in the living room, tracing tiny lines with his fingertip. By midday, he'd collected dozens of notes, sketches of cracks mapped on blueprints, marked with letters like a code. Sarah grew uneasy when she came home to find him lit by a single desk lamp, the rest of the house dark. "He's just curious," she told herself, but her voice trembled. One evening, Marcus tapped her shoulder. "Look," he whispered, pointing to the wall behind the sofa. Several hairline fractures, each no more than a millimeter wide, formed an arrangement of jagged strokes. They spell tome. Sarah tilted her head. She saw nothing but lines. "It's random," she said, voice cool. "Pareidolia." She offered to hire a handyman or repaint. He shook his head. "It's more than that." That night, she heard him whispering in the hallway, tracing the wallpaper's veins with a flashlight. She lay awake, waiting for sleep to claim her. But each floorboard groan made her heart lurch. A month passed. The cracks multiplied, in the kitchen, down the stairs, across bedroom walls. Marcus refused to leave the house. He snapped pictures on his phone and sent them to friends, but they shrugged him off. "Old walls," they said. "Get a new hobby." At 3:17 a.m. one morning, Sarah awoke to the sound of scratching. She stumbled into the living room. Marcus crouched before the fireplace, scraping loose plaster into a dish. Tiny shards glittered like broken teeth. He pressed one to his lips, tasting it. "What are you doing?" Sarah cried. He turned, cheeks ghostly. "It's spelling Odlost." His voice cracked. She grabbed his hand. "We'll fix it. Let's leave, just for the weekend." He shook her off. "It's too late." His eyes were haunted. Sarah began to dread the walls. She no longer saw wallpaper. She saw living skin, bruised and splitting. At night, she dreamed the lines pulsed, veins beneath the plaster, carrying some dark fluid. She woke to find her own hands trembling with fear. The cracks spoke to Marcus. He told Sarah the letters changed minute by minute. Help, Tihir, Bamama, Run. He documented them in a worn notebook. He would not let her paint over them. He would not let her wallpaper. The walls had to speak. Sarah slept in the guest room, the smallest bedroom, farthest from the patterns. She lay in bed, listening to the corridor breathing. Sometimes she thought she heard whispers in the sheeting, "Ave now, free us, combine the wounds." One afternoon, Sarah returned early from work to find the front door ajar. Inside, a thin trail of dust led from the foyer to the study. The plaster lines here had split wide, jagged ribbons flaring outward like claws. Marcus sat in the center, knees drawn to his chest, rocking. He looked up with hollow eyes. "They're angry." "Who?" Sarah whispered. "They remember me." He pounded his palms together. "The old family, the builders, the ones buried behind these walls." Sarah tried to pull him away, but he shoved her back. "You don't understand." "I do," she hissed. She ran to her car, slammed the door, and sped down the quiet street. Sarah checked into a motel. She left a note. "I'm safe. I love you." It sat on the kitchen counter amid plaster dust. She tried calling Marcus, straight to voicemail. She emailed him. No reply. She called the realtor. He said the house was under contract, but no buyers had closed. The owners still owned it. Marcus still lived there. At night, she watched news on the motel TV, flipping channels until she drifted off. She dreamed of the house, its walls buckling, cracks yawned like mouths, the entire structure inhaling and exhaling. 3 days later, Sarah couldn't stand the void. She returned, determined to drag Marcus out. The hallway light was off. She clicked it on and gasped. The plaster had split the door frames, thick webs of cracks tracing each arch. The air smelled of wet earth and something long dead. She found Marcus on the floor, copying letters into his notebook. "Sarah," he croaked, voice rasped like paper. "It's too late." She grabbed his arm. He trembled. She led him upstairs, each step a chorus of tiny fractures. In the master bedroom, the cracks had coalesced into a message spanning the walls. "Welcome home, dear son." Tears pricked Sarah's eyes. She knew what followed. The walls would tear them apart, pull them into the deep places behind the plaster. They fled to the front door, but the hallway rippled. The cracks wrenched the wallpaper, unspooled the molding, and the bricks beneath shifted, closing the exit. Sarah screamed. Marcus dropped to his knees, tracing the lines with desperate fingers. From the walls poured voices, soft sobs, distant laughter, tinny nursery rhymes warped by echoing hollows. Sarah clutched Marcus. She whispered forgiveness. He whispered love. The walls drew closer, their hairline mouths hungry for return. When they found the house 2 days later, the structure stood empty, doors swinging in the wind. Inside, the walls lay smooth, no cracks, no notes, no memory. The mantel clock lay shattered, its skull of gears emptied. Neighbors said a couple had moved in but left in terror, never to return. No one knew where they'd gone. The realtor sealed the house, dusted the fingerprint plates blank. But late at night, if you press your ear to the walls, you hear faint, erratic tick-tocks. And in the shadows between cracks only your heart can see, little mouths form words you cannot unhear. We remember.
Sleep is a luxury, and you've just run out. Thanks for joining, and please like, share, and subscribe.